Let's get back into what we were doing. Now, the thing I forgot yesterday was I forgot to close off this array. It's best to sort of click on the brackets to get a better idea of where everything closes out. But now we have object, whatever mapping. We're good. Let's get into it because all we have now is this. And the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of home. I want to get rid of, no, that's welcome. Where's home? I want to get rid of that. I want to get rid of index. There we go. I want to get rid of this. And I want to get rid of this. We also want to go to register. And I want to get rid of all this crap. Now what you should be doing, what you could be doing, is you could be populating your database. And as we already named it, we've already named it ecom, or whatever you want to call it. Let's make sure that that's cleared out. That's cleared out. We named it ecom, and as I've showed before, I didn't make a separate database and then fill the tables up and everything. This is what we're doing here. We're going to have the user basically is going to have all the profile information. We don't care about a profile. This is not a social network. This is an e-commerce site, so we just need to know who we're sending stuff to and where it's going. First name, last name, email, username, password, role, create at, update at. Create at and update at, you want to say default current timestamp, and you want to make them timestamps. I made role, user, and admin. We don't have an admin sign in, log in, or anything like that. We will do stuff like that later on. We're not going to do it now. Again, the email systems of these specific frameworks they don't work for my XAMPP, so it's whatever. What products, ID, name, price, picture, SKU, description, category ID, referencing, we are not going to be using the ORM relations really. We will for one instance, and that's it. And then it's create at, update at, timestamp, timestamp. I'm going to show you another problem with fuel. But category ID, integer, description, text, everything that you want. Credit card, that's what CC means. CC, Pedro. User ID, again, we're going to use the ORM aspects for this just to populate it. We're going to make number, CVV, name, and expiration date. We're going to make them all null, or they can be null. And then, of course, create at and update at. Category is real simple. ID, name, and the created, updated. I don't even think we need updated, to be honest with you. It's up to you. If you want to do an update, an edit categories thing, we can do that as well. It's completely up to you. And then card items, we have the ID, user ID, product ID. The reason why I have card items, I have all these things, quantity, price, name, total, picture, all that, is I want to be able to have the cart sort of appear. Well, I'll get it up and running, but we don't really have any information, so we'll just wait. But I want to kind of get it in the template drop-down. And again, relations, it's not right here. Sold, I made it a tiny int of 0 or 1. 1 meaning it was sold, 0 meaning it's not. And then, of course, billing is just your billing address. User ID, address, date, zip, yada, yada, yada. Once you have that all done, and again, you could pause to just see how I'm doing it. You don't have to do it this way. You can do whatever you want. Once you have that all done, it's time to make some models. The one thing I have to say about fuel, what can I get rid of? This is too, well, I guess the main we can get rid of. The one thing I can say about fuel is making models and controllers is really not that big a deal. So we're going to make, the one thing you have to understand though about fuel is you want to name everything in the singular, but the model itself, we're going to name this user.php. That's the name of the model, user.php. And we're going to open brackets. And all we have to do is go class. We have to name this specifically. Model user extends ORM model. And that's pretty much all we have to do. Let me double check myself, because God forbid. Right. Now we have to name everything. We have to tell it what it's looking at. See, we have to do table name and all that stuff. So it's a protected variable, static, meaning it can't change, properties, and then it becomes an array. The properties are what you can look at, what you can insert, what you can basically edit. So we have ID, no, we have, wait, is that part of it? Yeah, because we have to reference it. First name, last name. Let's go to users. Oh yeah, first I have to name the table. Don't forget that. Email, username, password, and role. These can be referenced. Okay, now we have to tell it what table we're looking at. That's properties. Whoop, it's protected, sorry. Protected, static, table name, and that's going to be users. This is what can be referenced. If you want to reference the created and updated dates, you have to put them here. You have to put them in your properties. However, if you do that, it becomes then a writable variable. And what that means is that we can't do protected static observers. Observers basically are like before and after updates. Let me just double check. Create. Yeah. Okay. More or less, it's telling the table that before this thing saves, make sure you put in a created and updated date. It's basically what it's saying. So all of that stuff that we've done, that in in Laravel or in CodeIgniter or whatever, where it automatically updated everything in terms of update dates and stuff like that, it doesn't do that here. You have to tell it. You have to tell Fuel in a way it works for you if you're not doing the ORM and stuff like that. You could just update it yourself. You could just do a specific date format, but make sure it's identical. Excuse me, where am I? There. Make sure it's identical to, that shouldn't be behind it, but whatever. Make sure it's identical to the date format that you picked, and then you could just load it in, do whatever you want when you update. Every time you update or create one of your objects, and send it to the database, it'll just you can format the date the way you want the date to look, and then you can reference it. But we're not doing it. We want to kind of update it automatically when we edit and we save. However, we can't reference it then. If we try to, because it's not in that area, if it's not since it's not in the properties, we can't reference it. That's why we're referencing ID. In the properties, we want to be able to use the ID. Now we can use any of these variables in the SQL queries, but in terms of presenting them, we can't. That's one model. Let's make another model, and we'll make this model product. And product.php is just the same thing. Class model product extends ORM model. Is it this way or not? It's this way. Well, we'll find out. No, I think it's the other way. Yeah, it's the other way. We'll get a weird error message if we don't do that right. And the reason why we're doing this now is because you want to kind of put together your template. And our template's going to have a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff referenced, and we don't want it to have all these weird error messages. Sorry. We don't want it to have all these weird error messages and everything like that. Protected, static, table name, products, protected, static, properties. And keep this open so I know what we're doing. That's ID, that's name, that's price, that's picture, that's SKU. Why do I always type sky? SKU, description, make sure you spell them right, and category ID. And now it knows those are the properties. And then again, we're going to do the protected, static, observers. And we're going to go ORM. I always forget. ORM observer. Always double check yourself. Otherwise you get weird errors. Okay. I don't think you have to name them created and updated at. I don't think that's a convention. But I'm not going to try and figure it out. That's all you need to do for ORM models. And next we're going to close that out. Next I'm going to explain what that was over there at the bottom of there. Let's do categories. Or category. As you can see, like I was saying before, it's real easy to make one of these. You don't have to do any extensions, well, you do, but you don't have to do any kind of includes or anything. It's just this. This is all you need to do. And I think that one was protected, static, table name, categories, protected, static, properties. And that would be ID, name, I think. I think that's it, right? Just ID and name. Yep. And then we'll do the protected, static observers. And that will be ORM, observer, created at. Really, if you're making your own framework, and we will sooner or later, really the only thing that's stopping me is the HT access. Category, none. Stop going down there. Stay here. Category, billing, card items. Yeah, that's all we got. Billing, PP. And that's class, model, billing. Don't forget to say model. With non-ORM models, you don't have to call it model something, but to put it together is a pain in the ass. So that's why I'm doing this. It is actually, the ORM in this does make it easier to forge inputs into the database. Billing. Again, it doesn't matter if this is the same name. That's more for you, and it doesn't matter if you pluralize, like billings. What would that? This isn't cake. This isn't Laravel. You don't have to, as long as it knows. Okay, I'm looking at this table, and even knows, you could just tell it I'm looking for this table name, and you could call the model whatever you want to call it. Just as long as you put model billing. That's one thing about Fuel. You have to tell it what it's doing before you give it its name. Just remember that. Tell it what it's doing before you give it its name. Like I said about the controller, you have to say in the functions action index post, and you have to. Otherwise, it just won't. It won't figure it out. It'll give you that weird error message. We don't like weird error messages, folks. I don't anyway. Maybe you do. Maybe they turn you on or something. I don't know. That's another thing I don't like about frameworks is that they always tell you that there's a problem with you trying to relate to their system. So they give you these weird error messages, line 1,800, and you go, wait a minute, I don't have, whereas, and then you realize it's in a class that you can't even find. Fucking nerds. Anyway, well, I understand it. Card items is going to be different. Card item, we have to make one. One word. If you try to make it 2 words, it screws everything up. So just make that 1 word. Or call it something else. I don't know. It's up to you. Class, model, and this is why, because we have to make this 1 word. You can capital, you can camel case that, but that's up to you. ORM, model. See, this is fun stuff. Totally fun. Having a grand old time. Table name. But you have to do this. You have to tell it to do that. Cart items. So it knows it's cart items. By the way, tomorrow's Father's Day, so don't forget to call your dads. Properties equals. Let's go to cart items and let's just make sure I have all the things. Okay, ID. User ID. I said that out loud because I have to remember to call my dad. Product ID, quantity, price, name, total, scattered pictures, sold. Ba 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 ba. And then after we do this, it's going to give us some weird error messages for every one of them, and we're going to be like, no! It's going to take us 3 hours to figure that out. Or maybe it won't, I don't know. We'll see. Create that ORM, capital, otherwise it'll freak out. Updated, you know, a lot of these frameworks, you remember just the good times, and then you forget all the stupid shit that goes into setting them up. Okay, so all we have left is C3, Pedro. So let's go to model, and let's go like this, and let's go cc.php. It's going to keep popping up in my C3, Pedro. Class model, cc, extends, model, ORM. We'll go protected, static, table name. The underscore just kind of gives it like that static variable appeal. This is stuff you have to think of if you want to make your own framework. Now again, you could just have like the framework is basically just a word that describes the bare bones of it, the scaffold, the foundation of. That's not the table name. That's okay. Let's just call that properties. And then we'll do it again for table name. It's the, like I was saying, it's the foundation of which you build your site on. It doesn't have to be this intricate. You could just have a connection and some HC access or whatever, and you're good. And that's a framework. But if you want something a little bit more detailed, a little bit more interesting, a little bit more with a little bit more voodoo, then you have to take all this stuff into consideration. You know, the calling of certain variables, the calling of certain functionality, of certain classes. Like I said, everything in Fuel is classes. It's not objects. It's a big difference. A class is what you build objects off of. An object is one version of that class, one instance of that class. Okay, so everything is done now. Now, with the registration, we're going to go here. We need to pass a data variable, or many data variables. And the data variables we're going to pass are going to be the error messages that we're going to leave here. So we have first name, we go first, sorry, somebody's doing work outside. There's always some kind of idiotic noise going on in my neighborhood. Last, data. It's username first, right? No, email first, then username. Email, user, God, that's annoying. This is what I have to live with every day, folks. Pass, don't you pity me? And conf And in order for it to know that we're using that variable, we have to go to the forwards, and we have to go like this, and we have to say data. Now it knows it has a data variable. FuelPHP, like all the other PHPs, if you want to pass some kind of data into it, like some kind of data array into it, then you just have to put the data variable and then pass it here in the view forging. But now that we've done that, we need the variables here. So, do a little PHP interfacing and say if is set first then we're going to output the echo first do the same thing for this. I mean, as of now, we don't have any errors. So if there aren't any errors, then we're not going to see anything. But once the errors start happening, then forget it. This thing's going to explode. So let's finish this, and then I have to get my snack and get this knee brace off. I was outside throwing. It's such a shame I didn't bring that to the leagues I played in. Well, Little League, they wouldn't let me pitch, but it's neither here nor there. User If you get the errors wrong, the error variable with names wrong, it'll freak out. So there should be a framework where it kind of shows you, right here, this is wrong. Instead of these big ass pages, these 404 pages that like make no sense. I mean, as long as they give you the actual line, I mean, the computer does that for you. So all you gotta do is present it. You just gotta take whatever the compiler or the server says is an error and then present it. Again, these are things that you have to take into consideration when you are making a framework. So now if we hit refresh, nothing there. But I think I have gone on for long enough. Let me see, what do we have? 22 minutes? Yeah, we'll stop here. I'll be back in a second.